focusing on.
You can't handle the truth.
Entirely legitimate topic for debate.
You have offended my family.
Hey, this is great, man.
And you have offended a Shaolin temple.
One major responsibility is to encourage people to use less drugs.
I know nothing.
I support a change in law to end federal criminal penalties for possession of up to 1 ounce of marijuana.
We don't need no stinking budget.
Homosexuality, immorality in general.
How in the century you have slurred the meaning of the words we, the people.
Be warned, this is not your mother's marijuana.
You could ask yourself a question. Do I feel lucky? Or do you, punk?
I want to ask you a bunch of questions. I want to have them answered immediately.
Surely you can't be serious.
I am serious. And don't call me Shirley.
Radical Rant.
All right, folks, when we last checked in on Clatsop County District Attorney Josh Marquis, the Sandman, last time we checked in on Marquis, he was offering you up this nice little packaged half-truth about the Measure 91 marijuana legalization. Specifically, he was saying that Section 55 allowed anyone to smuggle weed into prison and only get a ticket. And he knows damn well that Measure 91 does not repeal the current Class C felony for smuggling weed into prison. What Section 55 does is adds a ticket to someone who might have unknowingly brought their weed into the prison. But anyway, you know, that's the first one that we gave you. Well, today we've got 3 more, all of these coming from the most recent Salem City Club debate, where Clatsop County District Attorney Josh Marquis, who is, by the way, the leading spokesperson against Measure 91's marijuana legalization initiative, tried to minimize the need for the measure by citing suppositions about medical marijuana that just ain't true. The Oregonian reported his assertion that, quote, almost any adult can get a medical marijuana permit and legally possess up to 1.5 pounds of the drug, end quote. Marquis sarcastically added, now this wasn't in the Oregonian, I'm paraphrasing from memory, but something to the effect of, God forbid they get down to just 1 pound of marijuana, which could probably keep someone zorked out all year. Clearly, Marquis does not understand that the sickest patients need greater amounts since they are compounding that raw cannabis into edible or vaporizable forms. But you know, go ahead, make fun of the sick and disabled. Oregon, as do all other medical marijuana states, suffers from California quasi-legalization perception. Now, the medical marijuana law in California includes the right for doctors to recommend medical marijuana for, quote, any other illness for which marijuana provides relief, end quote. There is also no statewide medical marijuana card or registry system in California. So this has led to the infamous Venice Beach bikini sign twirlers advertising medical marijuana recommendations for $40, which can be obtained by fabricating any ailment, leading to an immediate admittance to hundreds of pot shops. Indeed, in medical marijuana in California, it really is a hodgepodge of quasi-marijuana legality with a doctor's permission slip. But that's not the case in Oregon. Or for that matter, any of the other 22 medical marijuana states. Washington's the only other medical marijuana state with no card and registry system, further compounding this perception that all West Coast medical marijuana states are similarly lax in their standards. In Oregon, any other condition will not qualify for a medical marijuana recommendation, period. Not only must a patient exhibit cancer, HIV/AIDS, glaucoma, cachexia, spasms, seizures, chronic pain, nausea, or PTSD to qualify, but there must also be notes detailing that condition in medical records from 3 separate doctor visits within the past 3 years before a medical marijuana clinic will even look at filling out a recommendation. And visit to these doctors, that can be up to $1,000 in expense before the patient can then fill out more paperwork and pay more fees to the state for a medical marijuana registry card. Then, and only then, can that patient gain admittance to a state-licensed medical marijuana dispensary, yet another significant difference from California and Washington, which do not license, inspect, or regulate dispensaries. Many people who would easily qualify for a medical marijuana card do not get one because of the time, hassle, expense, and lack of privacy involved with registering with the state. But under Measure 91, those people won't have to jump through all those hoops and sacrifice their privacy in order to acquire marijuana for their treatment. So long as they're 21 years of age, they'll be able to shop for marijuana in a secure, adults-only store with healthy adults. It's disheartening to hear the Clatsop County District Attorney exhibit such a lack of concern for the sickest and most vulnerable Oregonians. But he continues. In the Salem Statesman Journal, they report, Marquis tried to poke holes in those estimates by explaining how Colorado has lowered its revenue expectations in part because fewer people than anticipated are buying marijuana from a store. Quote, "It's called Reed for a reason," Marquis said. "It's not like brewing your own whiskey. It's not that hard to make." End quote. He suspects that even his wife, who supports marijuana legalization, could, quote, "grow some awesome weed," end quote, in their greenhouse. Okay, look, I suppose if I took some Welch's grape juice and sat it in a warm, dark cabinet for a week or two, I'd have a fermented alcoholic beverage. But I doubt anyone's going to mistake it for a Chardonnay or a Merlot. Sure, pop some seeds in the ground, let the sun and the rain tend to it, come back in a few weeks, and I suppose you'll have a few ditchweed plants. But nobody's going to mistake it for the quality marijuana that someone can get at a dispensary. Of course, Marquis was immediately called out by Representative Blumenauer for this idiocy. Representative Blumenauer said, quote, "You can grow your own tomatoes. Why would anyone buy an heirloom tomato in a store?" End quote. Indeed, we have the right to grow our carrots, lettuce, celery, potatoes, apples, hell, almost any other fruit and vegetable in our land. And it's far easier to grow those crops than it is to grow quality cannabis. But most of us don't, because there's similar or better offerings of many more varieties available at the grocery store. The fact is that growing quality marijuana is very difficult. I am a marijuana policy professional with direct access to the latest information, the best equipment, and the most knowledgeable horticulturalists on the West Coast. And not one of my growing attempts has yielded anything I'd ever pay money for. I've lost crops to powdery mildew, spider mites, lack of water, electrical failure, thieves, things that have never affected any of my homegrown tomatoes. Colorado's brought in $37.5 million in taxes and fees on marijuana so far, and while that is lower than the original estimates, it's infinitely greater than the $0 brought in prior to 2014. The real reason those estimates are lower isn't because residents can home grow 6 plants, it's because recreational marijuana is overpriced due to overtaxation. And that's not going to happen to Oregon's market, thanks to Measure 91's flat $35 an ounce taxation. Coloradoans with a medical marijuana card, or a buddy who has one, well, they're going to prefer to shop at the dispensaries where the taxes are 2.9%. Why would they want to go to the pot shop where the taxes are 15% plus 10% plus 2.9%? Although, I gotta say, I do look forward to finding out just how awesome a crop of marijuana Josh Marquis' wife can grow in a greenhouse. And one more lie. As he continues campaigning against marijuana legalization under Measure 91, he keeps repeating these talking points that you could charitably call true if you didn't read between the lines. This example is the notion that, well, we really don't need to legalize marijuana because hardly anybody goes to prison for it. The Bend Bulletin reported on Josh Marquis' remarks at the recent Measure 91 debate, saying, quote, "But he said the argument that Oregon's prisons are clogged with marijuana users and the notion that the state pays more for prisons than education is, quote, simply not true," end quote. Records from the Oregon Criminal Justice Commission last month showed just 5 people are in prison in Oregon for possession of marijuana. In total, 130 people are in prison for marijuana-related crimes, with an average sentence of about 2 years, the record showed. End of the report. And that's true as far as that goes. Yes, there's 5 people in prison for marijuana possession and 130 in for growing, trafficking, and selling marijuana. Kinda sucks for them, doesn't it? I mean, even if one person is locked up over this plant, it's a shame, it's a tragedy. But what Marquis and others like him are purposefully omitting is that marijuana can land you in jail or prison without it ever being acknowledged in the criminal justice statistics. And that's something that a county district attorney is certainly aware of. For instance, simple possession of marijuana becomes the crime of distribution if you're sharing it with your friends. Simple possession of too much marijuana automatically qualifies for possession for sale charges. Possess that marijuana in separate baggies or own a kitchen or postage scale, and you'll get intent to deliver charges tacked on. So those 5 people in prison for possession are the few who manage to avoid being lumped in with the other 130, many of whom may also have been just simply possessing. Then there are the charges for possession that earn you a trip to prison for another non-marijuana related crime entirely. If you're on probation or parole and get caught with marijuana or a dirty urine screen, you're returned to prison on your original charges, not the fact that you got caught with weed. If you possessed marijuana in your car, that can lead to a driving under the influence conviction. If you're a parent, you can be charged with child endangerment, abuse, or neglect just because there's marijuana in your house, or God forbid, a plant. If you used a cell phone or a text message or an email to get your marijuana, that's illegal use of a communications device. If you bought or sold or acquired marijuana through the postage, through the mail, through a shipping service, that's illegal use of a shipping service. If you lawfully own a firearm for sports or for protection, you can be charged with using a firearm in the commission of a crime. Now, when confronted with these facts, prohibitionists will often defend by saying, well, the person serving time for marijuana possession often pleaded down from other, more serious crimes. Well, yeah, sometimes those more serious crimes are the manufacture and sales of marijuana. But other times, yeah, they may have committed a serious crime, which leads one to wonder why a district attorney didn't prosecute them for that. Do they really wish to keep marijuana a crime simply to be able to punish people they couldn't convict of more serious crimes? I would say the evidence kind of points toward that. A lot of the cops I talk to from LEAP tell me all about that, yeah, if they've got a hunch that patting that guy down and finding some marijuana or smelling marijuana in the car is the key that unlocks the Fourth Amendment, allows them to get past all these pesky requirements of probable cause and needing of warrants and things like that, where they can bring in a well-trained dog that will react to their subtle cues to alert, to give them all the access they need. That's why these DAs, people like Josh Marquis, want to keep marijuana illegal. It just has to do with making their job easier. It has to do with filling up beds at the rehab hospitals. It has to do with getting drug asset forfeitures and getting grants. It's a big, big machine. And I'm telling you, marijuana users are the grist for the mill. We take marijuana users out of the machine, and this machine starts tumbling down. Like Grover Norquist once said, I don't want to see the entire police department dismantled. I just want it shrunk to the size I can drown it in a bathtub. And that's all the time we got for Hour 1, but stay tuned. In Hour 2, we got more highlights from the International Cannabis Business Conference. Plus, we're going to play Earl Blumenauer, Representative Earl Blumenauer's speech at the ICBC. For Wiz Cleco, I'm Radical Russ. Thanks for joining us, and until next time, take care of each other, tokers.
This is the Russ Belville Show. The Russ Belville Show is blogging and podcasting daily at RadicalRuss.com.
You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it. You take a seed, you plant it, you grow it, you dry it, you roll it, you smoke it, and it goes.